Welcome to A Perfect Place to Start. I'm Catherine, and on this channel we do home decor and DIY projects. Today's video is a mega video with 38 Dollar Tree Christmas DIYs to get you ready for the season. So if that sounds like something you're into, I hope you stick around, like, and subscribe. So this project is a total Dollar Tree project. I'm going to be using 24 of these wooden boxes that you can pick up at the Crafter's Square area. So I'm going to take 4 of the boxes and I'm going to use my antique Waverly wax and I'm going to cover all of those. So just as a reminder here, and I guess I didn't think about it when I started the project, but there are 2 boxes to each box because these boxes have an insert and you do need to do both boxes. So it does end up being 48 boxes that we end up painting, which does make for a little bit of a tedious project. So once I cover those 4 boxes and the inserts, then I'm going to do all of the other 20 boxes green, both the outside and the inside. So this whole project was inspired by this gift bag that I had seen at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut out each of the little squares from the gift bag. Then I'm going to trace around the insert of the box to give myself a square, a little bit smaller square, I guess, from the gift bag. Once I have all of those cut out, then I'm going to use this spray glue that I got at the Dollar Tree. I love this glue. It works so much better than Mod Podge. My one complaint was it got a little bit clogged as I was using it, and I did end up using Mod Podge on like the last few boxes I had. If I can find a bigger bottle of this, I will link it down in the description box. But you're just going to glue each of the little squares onto each box. And remember, it's I guess up to you, but I faced the little cutout on the box to the back. You're going to cover it up anyway, so if you wanted to, you could cover the front of the box with your paper. I'm using these little square wood pieces that also came from the Dollar Tree for my handle, and I just glued those kind of right into the middle of the box. It ends up being like right over the nose of the character in each of the picture. So I went ahead and did that for all 24 boxes, and we're ready to assemble them together. I'm using some wood glue that I picked up at the Dollar Tree along with some hot glue just to give it a more like quick hold and then a more permanent hold, because this is something I would like to keep for a long time. So I just give it a really great amount of glue, and then I'm going to glue them together. So here was the other kind of discovery I made as I started to glue these together. Not all of the boxes are quite the same size. So as I'm gluing them, some of them are a little bit bigger, some of them there is a small gap once my whole tree gets assembled. So I'm okay with it. But if that's something that might bother you once you make it, just make sure that when you're lining up your boxes that they all match. So as I cut out all the characters, I tried to kind of stagger them. And when I was doing the voiceover for the video, I realized that my Santas are going kind of in a diagonal line, but I didn't notice it when I was putting it together. So you can, play around with it. You'll see here in a second, play around with some of the placement of the boxes just to give it a more like rounded area. On the gift bag, there are a few of these squares that have wording on them. I couldn't make the wording work on the box because some of it, like the important parts, were missing. So I just chose to do the characters' faces. And the reindeer here in my boxes is not Rudolph because he does not have a red nose. So my secret word today was comet, and the reindeer here in my boxes is comet. So don't forget to write that down. Secret word comet. So after I get them all glued together, I'm going to take these stickers that I picked up at Hobby Lobby and attach them to the front for my Advent days. And here is the final look of the project. I absolutely adore this. I cannot believe that this was made pretty much with all Dollar Tree supplies, and let me know what you think about it. So for this project, we're going to be using a Perpetual calendar from the Dollar Tree. I went ahead, took some scrapbook paper that I had on hand, and traced it around the top so that we could cover up the wording there. Then I'm taking some Cashew Waverly chalk paint. I'm going to cover up this brown color. That is not a necessary step if you want to keep it brown. Then I took the months, and I'm gluing the months together because I felt like this is a countdown to Christmas. I don't actually need the months. If you wanted to keep them there though, you totally could. And then I went ahead, glued those all together and covered them with some Waverly chalk paint as well and glued them into the box. Then I took some scrapbook paper that I had already cut out, and then I glued that to the top and used my sanding block to get rid of any of the excess paper. I also took some Avery sticker sheets that you can put into your computer, and I printed off an image from Canva, and I'm just going to use the sticker and stick it down. It says days till Christmas, and then here's a final look of this project. So for this project, we're going to be using another Perpetual calendar that they have at the Dollar Tree. I did go ahead and print off a couple more stickers from my Avery sticker sheet using Canva, and so there is very little construction to this project. We're just going to take some scrapbook paper that I had on hand, and again, Hobby Lobby has so many options. This particular Perpetual calendar has some hooks that are hanging at the top. I just poked some little holes in my scrapbook paper, hung it on the hooks, and then I glued it to the wood board after I had it hanging on the hooks. It leaves about a ½ an inch of space up at the top, so you could use stickers there. You could even paint it to kind of go into the paper. I chose to use some washi tape up there, but it's totally up to you. I do go ahead and use my sanding block, sand off any of the excess papers, and then I go ahead and add my washi tape at the top. Mine is these little mugs that say stay warm. I kind of thought that it went together with the snowman, but again, this is customizable and you could put anything you wanted up there. Once I get those all adhered, I'm going to take the month hanger, and I'm going to use some scrapbook paper and cover up the month hanger with my scrapbook paper. I cut out this this Santa snow globe to attach. It's a slightly bigger than my piece or my tag. I do go back later and change it out for a snowman that fits just right on the tag, but for the video purposes I did go ahead and use Santa. So I'm going to hang it on that first hook where the month would go, and then I'm going to take my other sticker that I created that says countdown to Christmas, and I'm going to stick it down on the bottom of the sign. Once I get that stuck on the sign, I'm going to go ahead and attach the numbers back to the sign. So I went ahead and just left all the numbers that it came with. I put them in group of 3 for each one of the hooks. It's totally up to you if you just wanted to have one hanging there, but however long you wanted to count down to Christmas, I guess. But once I get those onto the hanger, then here is the final look of this project. To take this wood cutout gingerbread house from the Dollar Tree and some other various supplies that were from the Dollar Tree, and then some ornaments that came from Hobby Lobby. And we're just going to use the Waverly antique wax, and I'm going to cover the entire house with the antique wax except for the snow on the top. And I'm just going to paint it all on and then use a paper towel to brush it off. Now I'm going to take my hazelnut paint from Waverly, and I'm just going to go around the windows, the doors, and the outside of the gingerbread house so that I get 2 contrasting brown colors that look like cookies. Now I'm taking my Fern Waverly chalk paint and I'm just going to paint in the trees that were already cut, like wood burned into this cutout. And now I'm ready for the embellishments. So these are actually little gumdrops that were like on a garland that I picked up for a tiny tree over at Hobby Lobby, and I just cut them off of the garland and then took them off of the string, and I'm just gluing them onto the parts of this gingerbread house where there was wood burned ornament cutouts. These end up being the perfect size. I glue like the bottom part of the gumdrop up towards the top of the roof line and then the point down so it looks like a bulb is hanging down.
Come joining us all, the feeling is here today. Come on now, let's go. Caroling through the snow all day. We've been good, but we can last. Hurry Christmas, hurry now. I can't wait to.
There are ornaments that go at the top of the roof line as well where the snow part is, and I'm just going to keep gluing these gumdrops up to the top as well. So we're ready for our snow, and I'm using caulking that came from the Dollar Tree and my husband's caulk gun, and I'm just going with a generous amount around the rooftop, and I just go right over the roof hanger, the hanger for the gingerbread house, and then I go at the bottom of the window seals because there is some wood burned like snow area there, and then I decide to go on the bottom of the cutout as well, on either side of the door, and I think it looks so cute. It looks totally like frosting. So next I'm going to take some greenery that came from the Dollar Tree, and it's just one of those green garlands. I'm giving it a haircut. I think I cut off a little bit too much, but I'm trying to make some little wreaths to go to hang on the windows and the door. So let me tell you, giving these little greenery things a haircut is very messy. So once I was cutting it, it was sticking to my scissors, it was sticking to my hands and my pants, and so just make sure you have a trash can handy so you can sweep that into the trash can when you're done cutting it off. So I'm ready to attach the wreath, and on the door there is like a raised cutout wreath already on there. I'm just going to glue this little tiny wreath right onto the wreath that is on the door, and then I'm going to attach 3 more wreaths to the windows. Just to give my wreath a little bit of added touch, I'm going to take some berries that I also got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to attach a few berries to each one of the wreaths. I place the berries at the top of the first wreath, and then I decide I actually like the berries better at the bottom of the wreath, and so I go ahead and move the first berries I attached on there down to the bottom, and then I just glue the berries onto the bottom of each of the wreaths. So we're almost done with our gingerbread house. Just for a final touch at the very end, I take some really fine glitter that I just had in my stash and I sprinkle it over the snow. Here's the final look of our gingerbread house, and I absolutely love the caulking as the icing. It totally looks like icing, and I think this thing turned out adorable. Take a picture frame from the Dollar Tree and some greeting cards that came from Dollar General, and we're going to make this really cute gingerbread picture frame. So it's a 5x7 frame. I just painted it with a few coats of my Waverly White chalk paint. I'm using the envelope and the card, and all I'm going to do is hot glue my card to the envelope in the corners so it doesn't move around when I put it into the picture frame. So this project would make a really cute gift if you put it together with some gingerbread man cookies or gingerbread cake. I think anyone who received this would love it. I do go ahead and put a dab of hot glue on the inside of the card just so that it's not like, doesn't look like it's opening in the frame. Sometimes they can do that, and so I just want to make sure it's glued down well. That is it. I did go ahead and add a gingerbread ornament down at the bottom of the frame just to give it a little added oomph, but it turned out so adorable and it's so simple. Making a mini gingerbread house, and we're going to be using one of those boxes from the Dollar Tree along with our caulking and our white paint, and we're going to remove the lid from the box, and then we're going to be using that lid as the stand-up picture that we are creating. So we're going to take our white Waverly chalk paint and we're going to cover the entire lid with the white paint, and then we're going to go back over with our hazelnut paint and we're going to paint the gingerbread house with the hazelnut paint. So using our caulking from the Dollar Tree again, we're just going to go over the top of the house where it's kind of scalloped to make the icing for our gingerbread house, and then we're going to put some of the caulking above the roof to give it kind of icing for the smoke out of the chimney. And then I decided to go ahead and do some icing down at the bottom around the house, but not, or I think I do go over the entire bottom of the house. So we're taking that same gumdrop garland that came from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to cut it apart and then place the gumdrops in the icing on the roof. I do go ahead and place some of the gumdrops down in the front of the house as well, but I don't go in front of the door. Let me know down in the comments below if you've ever made a real gingerbread house. My dad makes a homemade gingerbread houses every year, and when I was making this little tiny one, it totally reminded me of some of the ones I've made with him, with all the gumdrops on the roof and just all the candy that I've put on there. So I really had fun with this one. But let me know down below, have you made a real one? Do you make like the graham cracker ones, or do you even like gingerbread? I love to make little gingerbread men. They are one of my favorite cookies. So after that last row of gumdrops, I decided to add a little bit more caulking for the icing. Just it looked a little plain right there, and then the little tiny gumdrops have a better chance of sticking on there with that extra part of the caulking. So here is the little gingerbread house. I did go ahead and add one of those little gingerbread men down in the corner. I think it turned out adorable. I just love how cute and tiny it is. So a mug at the Dollar Tree, and then we're using up the rest of the caulking. That was one reason why I decided to put it in the video, just so I could use up what was left in this caulking tube. So I put some floral foam in there, and then I'm just going to take the caulking and I'm going to go around the lip of the cup, and then I'm just going to start filling it into the center of the cup. My suggestion, I've never made one of these before, and so this is my first attempt. I think a cone-shaped inside of the cup would work much better, because as it started to dry, it deflated a little bit. I do still think it's pretty cute, but I think that would have worked better. I also didn't go out to buy any more like embellishments for this. This was just left over from what we were using already today. So I'm using the gumdrops, and I'm just sticking them into the cup in various places, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick a straw in there just for the added touch, and then at the very end I take that fine glitter again and I go over the top to make it kind of look like added sugar. I think this turned out adorable. It was really simple. It did take I let it dry overnight, so if you're going to make one of these, depending on how much of the caulking you add to the top, kind of depends on the drying time you might need. So I get asked all the time about my Snowman scissors. They were actually a gift from my mother. However, I did go on Amazon just to see if I could find a pair, and I did find a pair, so I will put the link to those scissors down in the description box. I also get asked a lot about my hot glue gun holder. That was also a gift from my husband last year for Christmas, but I have found one on Amazon as well, so I will link that the link to the glue gun holder as well down there.
Christmas time's got the best of me, then it starts.
So once I get ready to put the straw in, I just cut about a third of the straw off of the length of it, and then I stick it into the floral foam. My husband thought it was down a little bit, so I picked it out of there, and it gave this nice little swoosh of the foam in there, and I think it turned out really cute after it got pulled out of these gingerbread signs. And we are going to need 2 of the plaques from the Dollar Tree, the sticker set from Dollar General, some Mod Podge, and some ribbon that I also got from the Dollar Tree. So first we're going to just paint our signs with some Waverly White chalk paint, and then we're going to take these wall stickers, and these were so cute. I found so many really great things over at Dollar General this year, so if you haven't checked out Dollar General, you should go check it out and see what you can find over there. They have some super cute farmhouse things. So all we're going to do is take the half of the sign, and we're going to put it on the first sign, and then we're going to take the other half of the sticker set and put it on the second sign. And I'm just going to layering it. There's an example on the sticker set of how to make this one big sign. So if you didn't want to make this into 2 separate signs, you could definitely make this into one continuous sign. I wanted to put them in my hot chocolate bar, so I was making 2 separate signs. So I'm just going to place the stickers in a kind of order here that fits onto the sign, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the other smaller sign.
Wake up with a smile, the feeling is right today. Magic in the air, 'cause something is waiting for me. Oh, I've been good, but I can last. Hurry Christmas, hurry now.
Here's the final look, and I think they're adorable. I did go ahead and add some of the ribbon from the Dollar Tree and a little berry up at the top just to give it more of a shabby chic look, and I think that they turned out just super cute. Need a window cling set and some pink this is folk art chalk paint, and then these little picture frames I picked up at a garage sale this summer for $1. They were $1 for all 4. So all we're going to do is paint the outside of these little picture frames with some of this pink folk art chalk paint, and then I leave the glass in when I first start to paint, but then I do get some paint on the glass, which was fine. It was easy to wipe off, but I decided to go ahead and take the glass out eventually and paint the inside so that there isn't any of the natural wood color showing on the inside when you look inside the glass part. If you didn't have a set of these mini picture frames, you could use any of the smaller picture frames they have over at the Dollar Tree. They would work. They have several sizes, so there are some bigger window clings in this set that didn't fit in my tiny frames that would be super cute if you wanted to make them into the same thing. So if all you had is a bigger frame, it would still totally work. So next I took a brown piece of scrapbook paper and I just traced the insert of these little frames to make 4 of the pieces to go inside the frames. And then I'm just going to take the window clings and I'm just going to place them onto the pieces of scrapbook paper. And then I'm going to use my Mod Podge and Mod Podge the window clings onto the paper. So I'm ready to place the pieces of paper back into the frames, and I'm just going to put them in there like their picture and then put the back on. I decide they're missing something, so I go back over them and do some distressing with the white Waverly chalk paint, and I think they turned out so adorable. I have this little ledge in my hot chocolate bar and they fit perfectly on the ledge. We are going to need one of the gingerbread forms from the Dollar Tree, some pink and white paint, and then pearls that also came from the Dollar Tree, and the ribbon came from the Dollar Tree. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the buttons and just put them aside. I'm not going to actually use these buttons. I was so sad when I got this out. My gingerbread person has like a big gouge in the side of it, and I was hoping I could cover it up with the paint, but it didn't actually end up getting covered up. And I tried like all these other options to cover up that part, but I wasn't able to do that. But I still wanted to make the project, so I'm going to go ahead and finish it. So I'm using some Waverly chalk paint in, I believe, truffle. I'll list all the paint colors that I use down in the description box. But I'm going to use the brown, and then I'm going to cover his icing parts with the same pink chalk that we've been using all day. And then I am using the ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to glue that over the pink icing.
Riding through the winter night, thinking of my only wish. I don't need a perfect snowman, and I don't need the bells and boughs, but I'll be home for you. I'll be home for you.
When I glued down the first piece of ribbon, I had a little bit of the icing showing, but then when I went to do the second piece of ribbon, I liked it better covering up all of the icing. So just go back and kind of move my ribbon over so you can't see that icing part sticking out, and then I'm just going to continue to do that around his feet as well.
But they hold nothing next to you, 'cause you're shining like no other. I don't want what's wrapped in paper. No, I don't long for gifts of gold, but I'll be home for you. Oh, I'll be home for you. And I'll be home for you.
For the bow tie, I just tie a simple bow and I glue it right on top of the bow tie, and then I'm going to use those pearls from the Dollar Tree and I just glue one in the center of the bow and then down the front of him for his buttons. And so I'm ready to do his face, and this is just a simple face. I'm using just a black marker and I draw his eyes and then just a simple nose and a cute mouth, and then I decided to go ahead and add some freckles on there because it's a gingerbread man and he has to have some cuteness.
And though this long December night, only you can pull me through. Nothing wrong with cheers and carols. Oh, nothing wrong with sleigh bells in the snow. But I'll be home for you. Oh, I'll be home for you.
So I decided to add a heart on the body of the gingerbread man, just one to kind of try to hide that mark that's on there in the wood, but I really liked how the heart added some extra detail, and it's about the same color as the pink that we painted. So I decided to make this a gingerbread girl instead of a boy since it has lace and pink, and so I added a little tiny bow for its hair or head in that same ribbon that's on its body.
I'll be home for
So here she is, all finished. I think she's super cute with her pearls and her lace. And hi friends, are you enjoying today's video? I hope so. I had a lot of fun making these, and if you're enjoying it as much as I did, I hope you'll go down and hit the like button so my video can be seen by other people. So the first way we're going to use this gingerbread house today is to paint it a traditional brown color. I'm just using some brown acrylic paint, and I will list everything that I used in these 5 projects today down in the description box. So I'm just going to paint this entire gingerbread house with the brown acrylic paint minus the trim at the top, and then I'm going to blend in some white acrylic paint with my brown, and I'm going to go ahead and dry brush it. I wanted this to be kind of a lighter color to give it more of the appearance of a cookie or an actual piece of gingerbread. So once I get that totally covered, then I'm going to be working on the trim and the windows. So for this particular trim, I am using some cotton balls that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I just pulled them apart, and I'm going to use them as the snow effect to go all the way around the trim of the top of the tree, and then I'm going to use them to do the trim on the windows, all 3 windows, and then down on the bottom by the door. So there are actually 2 different types of these gingerbread houses. I didn't realize that until I started doing the projects today. But this particular house has the one 3D window at the top and a 3D door, and then the other 2 windows are just part of the gingerbread house, and then the other one has all 3D windows and a door that is not 3D. So one of my subscribers suggested that I use puff paint in another one of my gingerbread DIYs, and I'll list that video up here in the cards and down in my description box. And so I decided to try it out, and that person, who I can't remember who it was, but thank you so much for the tip, because this was a total game changer. This puff paint totally looks like icing. It was super easy to use, and I believe I used it on 3 of the houses today, and I was able to get all 3 houses done with 1 bottle of puff paint. So I picked my puff paint up at Hobby Lobby over actually in the t-shirt supplies. So once I get that puff paint on, I will say it does take quite a bit of time to dry, so make sure you give yourself a ample amount of drying time. I did even use my heat gun and it still took quite a while. So these little lollipops were over in the miniature decorations at Hobby Lobby. They come on like a big string. I just cut them off and glued them around to where the lights are engraved into the wood gingerbread house. And then I took these little Christmas trees that I also got from Hobby Lobby. I know the Dollar Tree sells something similar. I just wasn't able to find really any of the bottle brush trees this year, so I got mine at Hobby Lobby. So I went ahead and glued that to the front where the tree wooden cutout is, and then I hid the bottom of the tree in the cotton balls. So I do actually end up gluing part of the cotton ball here onto the bottom of the tree just to hide the bottom, so it looks like the tree is underneath or in the snow. So once I get those on, I picked up these giant lollipops at Hobby Lobby as well, and they had sticks. I just removed them and removed the little hanging pieces, and then I'm just going to glue them all around the top or the trim of the house. So I thought that these turned out so cute. Originally I was just going to put one in the middle, but then I decided that looked kind of funny. But I really liked how they ended up turning out with all of them. I did use the entire package here. There were 6 of them, and I used all 6 of them to go around the trim of this house. I do go ahead and just hot glue them to the cotton balls, and then I decided that the windows needed like a little bit of gingerbread magic, so I found these little gingerbread ornaments also in the miniature section of Hobby Lobby, and I just glued a different one to each front of the window, and I found this really fun gumdrop star that I put in the middle as the wreath on the tree, and then this is the final look of this project.
Last year I thought about how things can come around just like that if everyone is here to celebrate one day.
So this particular house ends up being my favorite of the day. I let my kids vote, and their favorite was the candy house, and so I put that one as the first one. Let me know which of the houses today is your favorite, and we'll go with emojis today. So if the first one, the candy house, was your favorite, then leave me a candy emoji. If this one is your favorite, leave me a red heart. So I went ahead and just used a Christmas red acrylic paint, and I covered the whole house with that color. I think it's totally a beautiful red color. Kind of reminds me of a candy apple. And then I'm using my puff paint again, and I'm going to go over the windows, the snowy part of the ledge, and then it's a little hard to tell here, but in the roof, I only outlined the roof and left the kind of cream color underneath, as well as the windows, and I really loved how that turned out. This reminded me of a barn. So I went traditional here. I used these little wreaths that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I know that they sell something similar at the Dollar Tree, and I just glued one on each window, and I'm going to glue the little trees on the sides where the tree cutouts are. And then I decided for a kind of a fun twist on the lights, I found these little pine cone picks at Hobby Lobby, and they come in like a whole bunch. I had to use some wire cutters to cut them apart, but I'm going to go ahead and hang those along the ledge and around the roof as where the lights would be hanging. I kind of felt like this gave it a more lodge look because, again, this reminded me of a barn. But I definitely love traditional Christmas colors, and so here is the final look of this project.
Celebrate one day. We have our ups and downs, but when there's love, there's always a way. And oh, this time of year, we come together to
So for this gingerbread house, I had kind of a farmhouse theme in mind, and I had gotten a few of the ornaments that were a little bit too big, and so I didn't get the total farmhouse feel that I was going for, but I do really think this turns out pretty cute. So once I paint it with the brown acrylic paint, I had already started to paint some of the snow on. Forgot to do the dry brushing, so I just went ahead and went back with a lighter shade of brown. And I did end up just dry brushing over all of it, including the snow, and then I just went back with some white paint and covered up that part. And then I'm going to go ahead and go in with some black paint, and I'm going to paint the door and window trim with some black paint. So this is another one of those houses that has one 3D window and the 3D door. I feel like I like the 3D windows better than the 3D door, just because it's easier to cover up that wreath section in the door part than it is the windows. So I don't know, that's just my opinion. So once I get the trim all covered with black and the windows, I'm going to add some fake snow here to the top of this one. So I just used regular white acrylic paint to cover the snow parts this time, and then I'm taking some of this fake snow that they have over at the Dollar Tree and also at Hobby Lobby. This was in my stash and I just happened to have a bag from Hobby Lobby, but they do sell this at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just using hot glue here. You could also use Mod Podge if you wanted to, but I go over like the whole icicle part of the roof with my hot glue, and then I just sprinkle on the like iridescent snow part. And then for the wreaths, I'm using those same Farmhouse wreaths that I got from Hobby Lobby. I just removed the red bows and applied these little black and white buffalo check bows I also got in the miniature section. And I'm going to go ahead and glue one to each window, the door, and then I added some trees again, and then I put some snow on the ledges as well. And then I got this cute snowflake garland that I applied just on the trim right here. And then here is the final look of this house. If this one is your favorite, I would love it if you left me a black heart.
And oh, this time of year, we come together to celebrate. Yes, every time the snow is falling down and it is cold outside, we gather around the fireplace.
This house, my husband thought that a royal blue color would be pretty for one of the houses, and so I was kind of inspired by his look because we thought the red one looked like a barn. So I don't know if he was thinking like a navy blue barn, but it ends up being more of an elegant house for this DIY. But I go ahead and cover it with my navy paint, which is really one of my favorite colors. And then I'm using some gold acrylic paint, and I'm going to paint all the window sills with the gold acrylic paint along with the door frame. So I do leave the natural wood color in the windows. I really like the effect of that with the color on the outside, even if it's just white. I think it really adds a pop to the windows. And the trim on the roof, because I think I really like the idea of the natural color coming through up there. It's a nice contrast to the other colors. So I'm using my puff paint again, and I'm going to go ahead and go over the window sills, and I go ahead and outline the top of the roof and leave the natural part showing, and then I do some white on the bottom for the snow. I do end up leaving it like this for a little bit, and then I decide that the house needs a trim, and so I go back with my gold paint and I trim out the rest of the house with the gold paint. So I really love, just this one's pretty simple, and I really love like the elegant look of this one. I think this would make a really cute planter. I had seen another gingerbread house planter at one time that was like a traditional one that someone had made out of foam board, but I think it would be really fun to paint two of them this way and then kind of add some maybe gold bottle bush trees in there or something like that. So maybe you'll see that coming on my channel soon as a DIY. But I'm just adding, like I said, the puff paint here around the edges. This, again, to my subscriber who suggested using this, was just a game changer, and I absolutely loved how it turned out. I definitely want to use more puff paint in some other projects, but I really just loved how this looked like icing. So then I'm going to go ahead and take one of the wreaths that came in that pack, and I added a gold bell to the top of this wreath, and then I decided to go ahead and glue bells along the roof line and the top of the house to look like lights. And I think that this added such a fun look. So if this house ends up being your favorite, I would love it if you left me a bell down in the comments below. But here is the final look of how this one turned out. So I had a winter wonderland theme in mind for this particular tree, so I went ahead, this particular house. So I covered the entire house with some white acrylic paint, and now I'm going to use my hot glue again, and I'm just going to cover the top of the roof with my hot glue. Now, I thought the hot glue added kind of a fun effect here. So I've seen ornaments done where people just used hot glue and created like a clear ornament. I think that it might be kind of fun to leave the hot glue on the top to kind of look like icicles. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it on something smaller. But I go ahead and add my fake snow all around the top and the window sills and the bottom. And then it's hard to tell in this video, but I did take one of those snowflake garlands. I cut off all the little tiny snowflakes and I'm gluing them where the ornaments or the lights would hang on the house. And then I took these giant snowflakes and I glued each one to the windowsill, kind of like a wreath, and then one to the door. And then I do go ahead and take two more of those small bottle brush trees. I cut off the bottoms this time and I just sort of insert them into the snowy part on the bottom to make it look like they are in the snow. And then that is it for this project. If this one ends up being your favorite, I would love it if you left me a snowflake down in the comments and check out how it turned out.
Last year I thought about how things can come around just like that if everyone is here to celebrate one day.
Using a party hat, some yarn, and this snowflake ornament that I picked up all from the Dollar Tree. In the supply picture, I do have some twinkle lights, fairy lights in there. I didn't decide to use the fairy lights after I put it all together, but I think it would look cute in the end with the fairy lights if you decide to go that way. So I picked up these super large party hats in the party section of Dollar Tree, and all I'm going to do is remove all of the party parts of this hat. I want the cone shape because we're making trees, and so I'm just going to remove all the excess things that are attached to it. So these hats are assembled together just like folded in together with some paper, and so I'm just going into the seam of it and I'm using my hot glue gun to glue down the paper so that the cone is not collapsible anymore. Once I have that all glued down, I'm just going to take my Waverly white chalk paint and I'm going to cover the entire party hat with the white chalk paint. And I'm going to do this for all three hats. I'm only going to show it here though, but it's the same method for each tree. So I give it a good couple coats and then we're ready to start with our yarn. So I am only putting hot glue down one side of the party hat and winding the yarn around it, so it's getting glued only in that one area to give it a nice clean seam around the rest of the tree. So once we have the yarn all on the party hat, it looks really beautiful. In fact, the seam where I glued it down has this really nice billowy look to it, so even if you wanted to glue the ornament on that side, you could. I decided to go with the clean lines that I was going for in the first place. So I'm taking this Dollar Tree ornament, and there is like a hook at the top, and I just bent it over so you can't see the hook. And all I'm going to do is take some hot glue and glue it to the top of our tree, and then this tree is finished. So here you have it. I had my family vote on the projects today, and this was their favorite tree. So let me know which one is your favorite. This really cute snowman tree, and we're using the same party hat that we used in the first one with the same steps with the white chalk paint and gluing it together. And we're just going to take these pom-poms from the Dollar Tree and glue them all over this party hat. I have 4 bags shown in the picture for the supplies, but I ended up needing 2 extra bags when I finally got this project all finished. So you're going to need altogether 6 bags of these white pom-poms. There are 80 pom-poms in each bag, so that is 480 pom-poms that get glued to this party hat. So it does seem kind of like a lot, but I promise you this went pretty fast. I just kind of watched TV and glued them on together, so you can do it. Your kids could do it. This would be a fun project to do with kids as well. I realized while I was making these trees that they could actually be tree toppers because they're so wide in the hat, and so I think that I'm going to use this snowman tree as my tree topper this year. Once you have them all on there, we're just going to take this snowman head ornament that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and we're going to glue his head to the top of this tree. So I put a lot of glue on his head, and I was worried it was going to drip down into the pom-pom, so I was just really like holding onto it for dear life that the glue did not go down into the pom-poms, but it did not. So if you're doing that, make sure maybe to lay it on its side when you go to glue his head on. So we're ready to glue his buttons on, and we're just going to glue 3 buttons that I had left over from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to glue those to the front of his body. When I originally planned to make this tree, I wasn't really going to make him into an actual snowman, but once I got his head on there, I thought he actually needs to be a snowman. So in the supply list, I don't have the buttons and his scarf and his arms listed in the supplies, but everything did come from the Dollar Tree. So his scarf is ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and then 2 brown pipe cleaners that I also picked up at the Dollar Tree. So I wanted his scarf to match his hat, so I took this red and black buffalo check ribbon that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I decided it was too thick to make into a scarf, so I just folded it in half and glued it together to make a skinnier scarf. So we're ready to assemble our snowman, and I just go ahead and crisscross the scarf in the front of him and then glue it together and make his little arms and glue a button in the middle of his scarf, and he is done. And he turned out adorable. Supplies from the Dollar Tree using that same party hat, and these are some feather boas that I picked up in the toy department at Dollar Tree. It took about 4 of the boas to glue to this tree, and all we're going to do is follow a simple method of putting glue down and winding it around the tree like we did with the yarn. So my idea for this tree was going with the song The 12 Days of Christmas, and I was thinking that these birds kind of reminded me of turtle doves. So I put the two trees in, or the two birds in the tree going off of the two turtle doves. I also did glue some of the feather boa feathers to the back of the birds just so that they kind of blend better in with the tree and they look more like they go there. So the process of this tree is a little bit messy. As I was gluing it on, some of the pieces were falling off, and so there was feathers and feather particles kind of all around the station when I was finished. So if you're recreating this, make sure you have something down so that you can clean it up easier. So we're ready to glue the birds into the tree, and I just kind of stick their feet into the feathers so you can't see them and they blend in better with the tree. So here's our final tree, and I think it turned out really beautiful. I really loved the look in the end. Did you know I'm on social media? You can find me on Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and of course YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, make sure you go down and do that now. A Tabasco basket, a tree, and some picks from the Dollar Tree, and some white paint. So we're going to start out with our Dollar Tree Christmas tree, and all we're going to do is fluff it out and make it thicker. This video is part of the Heidi Samble DIY challenge, and I will link her channel in the description box below. If you've never been to her channel, she has to be the sweetest person I have ever met, along with her DIYs are just amazing. So make sure you go and check that out and give her channel some much appreciated love. So we're just about done fluffing out our tree, and then we're going to flock our tree with some white Waverly paint, and I'm going to use the same technique through all three projects today, but I'm only going to show it here this one time. So I'm just going to take the paint and brush it all over the tree, and now we're ready to attach our tree onto the Tabasco basket. I'm just using a zip tie today, and I'm just going to pull it tight through those two holes so that the tree does not move around on the basket. I forgot to mention that I got this Tabasco basket at Hobby Lobby when it was like spring and they had their sale, and I think I only paid about $3 for this basket, so it was actually a pretty good deal. They had a whole bunch of them on sale. So I'm taking some Dollar Tree berries and I'm just gluing them into the tree, and I'm going to do that with the pine cones as well.
The love I lived, the dream I knew. Well, I'm all for Christmas. It's a magical time full of kisses. Take a walk outside and tickle the snowman's nose.
Don't forget to check out the playlist today that's down in the description box so you can see everyone's Christmas DIYs who participated in today's challenge.
I will keep you warm as soon as you remove that snow. Oh, whatever we do, we will be alright. These holiday wonders will open your mind. May all your wishes tonight come true. The love I lived, the dream I knew. This Christmas, I only wanna be close to you.
So we're ready to add the bow, and I'm just adding a already pre-made bow that I picked up at Dollar General last year, and I'm just going to attach it right to the Tabasco basket using the tie that came with the bow.
Can't believe it's been a year. Riding through the winter night, thinking of my own
Here's the final project. I think it turned out adorable. I just love how it looks with the bow, and I think it probably is my favorite project of the day. And we're going to be using 2 Christmas trees, some window clings, bows, and some filler and some ribbon, most of which came from the Dollar Tree. I think everything except for the cranberry looking vase filler. So we're just fluffing out the Christmas trees, and then I did the same flocking technique, even though I did not show that here. And then I'm taking the window cling and just adding some Mod Podge onto the back of the window cling, and then I'm going to Mod Podge it onto my vase.
But they hold nothing next to you, 'cause you're shining like no other. Ooh, I don't want what's wrapped in paper. No, I don't long for gifts of gold, but I'll be home for you. Oh, I'll be home for you.
So we're just going to add some green foam into the bottom of this vase so that the Christmas tree has something to sit in, and I'm just hot gluing a few pieces in there. And then for my Christmas trees, I forgot to mention earlier, I did zip tie both Christmas trees together. Like I fluffed them out and then had one flat side and put the flat sides together and zip tied them together after that.
Following the stars that lead me straight to you. And though this long December night,
I'm just going to push the Christmas tree bottom into the floral foam, and it's a pretty tight fit, so it should not move around. I didn't wait quite long enough for my glue to dry on the floral foam, so I do end up having to go back and add some more glue when it tips over. But now I'm just going to take some raffia, and I'm just going to actually put the raffia in the bottom to cover up the floral foam.
I wish for. Won't you make my dream come true?
Ready to decorate, and I'm just taking those bows that I picked up at Dollar General, tying them onto the tree, and then gluing on some of the vase fillers that look like cranberries around the ends of my trees. And here is the final look. It's so cute and so very farmhouse. I just really love how it turned out, and that vase filler cranberries are one of my favorite things to decorate with. So we're just going to zip tie these 4 Christmas trees together, and it takes me a little bit to figure out how I want to do that, but what I finally decided to do is just zip tie both trees together on the side, and then I put 2 zip ties in the middle to go around each of the black parts, the bottom of the tree, and I zip tie it together that way. Once I get the zip ties all together there, then I'm just going to go around and fluff out all of the trees to give it a fuller look, and we're going for a table centerpiece here, so we're just going to fluff them all up towards me. So I did go ahead and use the same flocking technique on this centerpiece as well with the white Waverly paint, and now we're ready to add the deco mesh. So I'm just making it group together, and I'm using some pipe cleaners, and I'm just attaching it into the tree, and then I'm going to go every 6 inches or so and make a loop, kind of a bunchy loop, and then I'm going to do it again with another pipe cleaner, and I'm going to do both sides that way.
What's under the Christmas tree for you and me? Oh, little bad toys that cuddle and woo, dinosaurs, boats, and kitty cats too.
We're ready to glue on the center of our swag, and I picked this up at the Dollar General, I think last year. But if you're not shopping at the Dollar General, they have some amazing things there for Christmas. I really like to get my ribbon there, and then they just have a lot of really fun ornaments and stuff that you don't see other places. So anyway, we're just going to glue this Santa, it's actually a snowman hat, into the middle, and now we're ready for those picks from the Dollar Tree, and we're just going to glue some more berries and pine cones into the swag.
Keeps on near. Every light, every song, every friend that comes along. A very Merry Christmas to you. Sing along to the song. Make a wish, grab a kiss, put another record on. Wake the neighbors, having fun down the street. Christmas trees, decorations.
So the last thing we're going to do is add these little bows that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and we're just going to tie them onto the ends of the evergreen pieces to give this swag a little bit more red.
A very Merry Christmas. Oh, we'll have this year. Very Merry Christmas is a joyful cheer. A very Merry Christmas. Oh.
Here's the final look of our swag, and I think it turned out really beautiful. This would make a really nice centerpiece for a coffee table or a dining room table, and it just has a real elegant look to it. And I just really love how that flocking technique makes the tree look so much more high-end. So we're starting out with a muffin tin, which is one of the items you can find all the time at the Dollar Tree, and I'm using some sandpaper that is also in the automotive section of Dollar Tree, and then I'm just going to sand the whole muffin tin. Now I'm using my chippy brush, and I'm using a variety of paint on this. I'm going to use steel, mineral, and truffle, and they're all by Waverly chalk paints. This would work really a lot better with one of those circular sponge brushes you can find in the crafter square. I didn't have one of those. I did pick one up today though, because this would have totally worked a lot better. But anyway, if you don't have one, a paintbrush will work just fine, because you're going to see it turns out so adorable. So once we get all the paint on, I'm using just a regular old wet wipe, and I'm wiping down the majority of our truffle paint. And then I'm going to use a paper towel and kind of wipe off the excess as well. So if you can't tell, we're trying to make this look antiqued and rusted, and to do that technique today, I am attempting to do the cinnamon technique. So I've never done that before, and I thought I'd try it out with you guys. So once I get all that paint off, I'm going to go back one more time with some mineral paint. This is why I think one of those circular sponge brushes would work a lot better, because I think you would get a much better blend. But I'm totally happy with the way that it turned out. So but I did, like I said, pick up one of those circular brushes. So I'm just making sure I get some mineral paint in all of the areas, and so now we're ready to use our cinnamon. So I debated, I was like, do I use the wide mouth area? Do I use the little holes? I eventually just decided to go with the hole section, and I just basically pour cinnamon all over, and I just do it all over the muffin cups and around the muffin cups. I don't do the back of this. I only do this technique on the front. So once I get the cinnamon in the desired area that I want it to be, it's looking fabulous. I'm just going to shake off the excess cinnamon, and what I read online, you could stop here if you wanted to. A lot of people said the cinnamon never came off. I decided to add a little bit extra, so I went outside, used a clear coat, sprayed it, let it dry, and this was the final look. I think it looks amazing. I would definitely recommend using the clear coat on it, because it sets it and it darkens the cinnamon, and so it gives it definitely a more rusted look. So A+ for this technique, and I totally plan to use it again. So a lot of times in my comments I get things like, this was a super simple craft, or these were so easy. And I didn't know if you guys knew this about me, but I am actually a full-time mom, a full-time wife, and a full-time teacher. I teach 7th grade science, and it is almost time for me to go back to school. And so a lot of my time is taken up doing, obviously, teaching throughout the entire day. And then I have other responsibilities at night, and then by that time there's only a little bit of time left for me to have some me time or to do some crafting. And so I just want to show you guys that, you know, things can be simple, but that doesn't mean that they don't have to be beautiful or high-end looking. You can create a home full of beautiful things that are super simple and that give you joy, which is what I do. So here we are, we've painted all the muffin tins with our white paint, and now we're just using some ink by Waverly to create our face. So I'm using the bottom of the paintbrush, and I'm using that to create eyes and the mouth. You could also use an embossing tool here. They sell them in the Crafter Square section of Dollar Tree. And they tend to have like a metal part on the end with a little ball. Those work really great if you're going to create eyes or polka dots. I like to use those for polka dots as well. But this is what I had on hand right now, so I just decided to use the bottom of the paintbrush. So I'm going to do each of the muffin tins with my eyes and mouth, and then I'm going to go back in with some orange chalk paint. And I'm going to paint on my nose. And so I'm just using a super thin brush here. I think these brushes came from either the Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby, or they might have came from Walmart. I think they might have been in a pack of like several paintbrushes from Walmart. But once I get all the faces painted on, I am ready to do our final steps. So just a note here. I am using some greenery that I had in my stash, and when I get it glued on here with the bow, I feel like it's a slightly too big. It totally gives me the farmhouse rustic feel, and if you've been with me for a while, you know I love rustic everything. So I love it. I mean, I'm totally in love with how this turned out. Just a note to self, I would probably make this top part a tiny bit smaller, just so it doesn't cover up so much of my snowman. But I am using a pre-made bow from the Dollar General, and this is a red and white buffalo check. If you missed my last video, I'll post it right here up above, and it was a video where I created a swag using a giant version of this same bow. I absolutely love Dollar General's Christmas area. I get a lot of my supplies from there. Their ribbon is amazing. You get more on the roll, and it's just as much as a Dollar Tree, and a lot of times they have like so many more cute patterns. Once I get these pine cones glued onto the side of our greenery, then this project is complete.
Hold up, I am on my way. I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside.
Let's be honest. Did you go to the Dollar Tree, see muffin tins, and think, I think I can make Christmas decor out of that? I don't think so. If you're enjoying the video, go down, hit that like button so that lots more people can see my video, and let's get back into it. So for this project, we're going to be using a sink strainer, and I'm going to go outside and give it a couple coats of paint with my Rust-Oleum satin. And I'll list that down in the description box. But once I have it all painted, I do glue that big stopper down in the back. I just put some glue in the hole so it stops moving around. And then I'm going to take some Crimson Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to paint it with the red chalk paint. So we're actually trying to make a Rudolph out of this, and we're going for a rustic Rudolph. So once we get that painted, we're just taking some burlap, and I just cut it into 2 little strips, and I glued one to the side of the other one to give it kind of an antler feel. This is a little bit abstract. I won't lie. As I was like making this, I was thinking, okay, where's this going? But I promise the end result is super cute. And once I got it on my tree, I was like, oh man, I really like this. Like, I would make a lot of these. So don't give up on me yet. Just keep watching. So I went ahead and put glue like down the strip of it, even though I'm not gluing it to anything, just to give it a little bit more stability. Because when I glued it to the back, it was a little wonky. But once I got some glue on it, it was working really good. So I'm just going to take that and glue it onto the other side, just like on the side that was already glued on. And I just put a good amount of glue there, and I get it obviously stuck on my finger. So once I get it just in there, I put a good amount and I let it dry. So after I got that done, I thought, okay, what can we add to this? It needs a little something. So this ribbon is also from Dollar General. I just gave it a quick crisscross bow and glued it into the middle. I love to make these bows. They're super easy, super simple, and I think they add a lot of character. So once I get that glued, I'm going to glue my bell into the middle, and we're obviously having a girl reindeer here. So we're gonna glue just this ribbon to the bottom underneath his nose. And once I had that on, I thought, okay, now we need a hanger. So I'm just using some twine. They came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna glue that to the top, and then this project is complete.
Da, 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 making our Christmas memories. I've been working so much lately, I can barely find the time to sleep. Yeah, spend my
So we're going to start off this project using some salt and pepper shakers, and I know what you're thinking, those are not anything new. There's a lot of crafts with salt and pepper shakers, and you're totally right, but that is not the item. That is kind of the odd item out here. The odd item is the sink strainer catcher thing that you put in your sink, and we're going to use that for the hat of our snowman. So we're going to go outside and we're going to paint our jars with some white Rust-Oleum and our strainer with some black Rust-Oleum. So once I have them all painted, I'm ready to paint on my face. This would be a great area to use a Cricut as well. You could put vinyl down with a snowman face here. I have a Cricut. It's just a really old one, and I don't pull it out very often because, to be totally honest with you guys, I never learned how to use it, and it isn't the kind that can like go to the online program. It's the one that has the cartridges, and so anyway, it sits in my garage, and I really wish I would learn how to use it, but I just hardly ever use it because it's an ordeal for me. So anyway, that would be a great option too. You could use stickers here as well if you wanted to, but I'm using some ink by Waverly, and I'm just going to paint on a little face here. I'm just doing little circles. It was a little bit hard to paint in the grooves here, so some of my circles could have been a little bit better, but I'm happy with the way that it looked out because, you know, I love rustic. So anyway, once I get that on there, I'm going to use that same orange paint from earlier, and I'm just going to paint on my little nose. So, you know, snowmen are really fun because they have a lot of character, and so you know what, if your face doesn't look totally perfect, it's okay, because a snowman's face isn't going to look perfect. If you've ever made a snowman, you know this to be true. Alright, so once we have all our face on there, we're ready to glue on our hat. So what I learned here is once I spray painted this hat, there are all these little tiny grooves in the strainer catcher thing, and so a lot of the I guess I wouldn't say a lot, but there was some paint, like debris or whatever, that came through there. So definitely shake it off. You can see on my brown paper there that there's a whole bunch of black paint there. So I'm just going to use some hot glue, and I'm going to attach it to the top. So it gives us kind of a western look for our snowman, so I decided to go with some burlap. And if you didn't know, I live in the Southwest. I live in New Mexico, and sometimes people are like, how come it's a lot greener where you live? Well, I live up more towards Colorado. If you are down in the, I guess, southern part of our state, it's a lot more brown. But once I have my burlap, I'm just going to tie it off, just a plain old knot over to one side. Then I'm going to use my hot glue and some more burlap, and I fold this piece kind of in half, and then I wrap it around the hat. So it's giving it like a trim, and I'm going to tie the trim onto the other side. So I have the trim of the hat facing one way, and our scarf, I guess you will, facing the other way. I do dovetail the ends. Once I get this glued on, then this project is complete. Making our Christmas memories. So we're going to be making 3 of these wall art pieces, and these are just gift boxes that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. I'm just using leftover ribbon from Dollar General and Dollar Tree along with some jute cord. You can also use the nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. This is just some that I had left over. So we're taking a foam board from the Dollar Tree, and all I did was trace around the gift box onto the foam board, and then I cut out 3 pieces of the foam board for our 3 boxes. Next, we're going to take our hot glue, and we're just going to glue down the flaps of the gift box so that they are solid, and then we're going to glue the gift box onto the foam board. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I love vintage things, and so these boxes just gave me that really good vintage feel. But there are so many choices for gift boxes. I found so many different styles just about anywhere that I went. So these can be customized to yourself or to another person for a gift. It just really is the sky's the limit here with these gift boxes. So next we're going to take our jute cord and we're just going to wrap the jute cord around the side of the foam board, and I'm just using my hot glue and attaching it all around the sides like a frame. So now we have the jute cord wrapped around and it's looking so good. We're going to repeat that step 2 more times with the other 2 gift boxes, and we're just using those other 2 pieces of foam board that we cut out. We're ready to do the bows, and I wanted to try this crisscross bow method that I keep seeing on YouTube, and so I'm just using some leftover ribbons that I've had throughout the season, and most of my ribbon came from Dollar General or Dollar Tree, and I just cut them up into the desired size, crisscrossed them, and then tied them together. I think that this method is really more for ribbons that don't have wire in them. All of the ribbons I was using today had wire. It was like burlap and things like that, and it was really hard to tie them in the middle. I did end up using floral wire to tie them together. I did like how it ended up turning out. I just think that maybe these ribbons that I was using were a little bit too stiff. So next we're going to add the hanger to our wall piece, and I'm just using that same jute cord. I'm just going to hot glue it to the back and then reinforce it with a little bit of more hot glue. If you are going to give these as a gift, you could always put a piece of poster board on the back to cover up where you have glued down your jute twine. I was not giving these away as gifts, so I didn't do that step, but to give it a more high-end look or a more complete look, you could do that. I'm just going to repeat this process 2 more times for the other 2, and like I said, these are all just scrap ribbons I'd already used throughout the season and I was just using up, so I cut some of the bigger ribbons this next time into smaller size, and it tied a little bit better, but again it's still pretty stiff, and I think probably ribbon without wire would be the best bet here. So here's the final look of our wall decor pieces, and I think they turned out awesome. I love these gift boxes, and I just wanted some way to display them in my home. So this project is a reindeer sign, and we're going to be using one of these wooden signs from the Dollar Tree. I think these are super fun with the beads on top. You don't have to do much to these to kind of jazz them up and give you that super fun farmhouse feel. So I forgot that you can remove these, but you're just going to take it out of the frame and paint it with a couple coats of antique white acrylic paint. And then I got these giant bells last year at the Dollar Tree. They came in a pack of 6. I just glued one down to the bottom, and then I took some black buttons, and these did come from the Dollar Tree as well, and I had already put some dots there so I could kind of map out where I wanted my eyes to be. I'm just going to hot glue those down, and then once I get those hot glued down, I'm going to take a Sharpie marker and I'm going to draw some antlers. So I didn't do anything fancy here, I just drew a couple of lines and some lines going off of them, and then this is the final look of the project.
Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the without freezing.
So for this project, we're going to be making a merry reindeer sign. These signs are from the Dollar Tree. They also have a peace sign. I wasn't able to find that one at my Dollar Tree, but I'm going to give the entire sign, both front and back, a couple coats of my antique white acrylic paint. So I found this new product, or at least it was new to me, over at the Dollar Tree. It's an Elmer's spray adhesive, and it sprays on purple. I did go ahead and spray kind of a generous amount because I wasn't really sure how it was going to work, but I really liked how it worked, and I'm going to go back and get some more because I also use it later on in the video as well. But I went ahead and put some iridescent glitter on top of that. It does dry clear so you don't see any of the purple, and then I took another smaller red bell and I'm going to glue that onto the bottom, and then this is the final look of this project.
Let's go outside, the snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me with a smile, it's quirky.
We're going to make a Christmas tree out of one of the rectangle boxes that they have at the Dollar Tree. This is one that's similar. It's not the actual one that I used. This is the one that's more like a shadow box, but I am using the back of it. So I'm going to trace some scrapbook paper that I got at Hobby Lobby, and then I'm just going to cut that out. I'm using some black acrylic paint, and I'm just going to paint the sides of this to match my scrapbook paper. Once I have that all painted, I went ahead and used the spray adhesive again, and so this would technically be a Mod Podging situation, and once I sprayed that on and it attached the paper on there, it stuck wonderfully with no bubbles or anything. So I highly recommend this project if you can find it. It was in the Crafter Square area. So I'm using my sanding block. I'm just sanding off the edges to give it a smooth finish, and then once I get all the edges off, I am going to take one of these wooden stars that also came from the Dollar Tree. These are in the Christmas area. I painted it gold and I'm going to glue it up at the top, and then I took these jingle bells that I had picked up last year in the Crafter Square and I glued them all to the tops of the trees that are showing. So if the tree didn't have a top, I did not glue anything to it. And then here is the look of this final project. I think that it turned out super cute, and it gives a really kind of fun vintage vibe to it.
We can hang out on the beach without freezing. Yeah, isn't that amazing? In Christmas time.
For this project, we're going to create a pallet reindeer, so I'm using one of those crates that's from the Dollar Tree that looks more like the slatted boxes, I guess they're called, and I'm going to just give it a good coat of my truffle Waverly chalk paint. I go ahead and paint the entire crate. I also go ahead and paint some of the tumbling tower blocks with the same color. I painted 6 of those because we're going to use those as the antlers. So once I get it painted with my truffle chalk paint, I go ahead and go over it with just some lighter brown acrylic paint to give it some dimension. And then I have this round circle in my stash. I'm pretty sure it came from Hobby Lobby. I painted that with some red acrylic paint, and now I'm going to attach my antlers. I did glue the nose onto the crate. So I glued 2 of the tumbling tower blocks together to give it some height, and then I took a 3rd tumbling tower block and I glued that to the side to give it the antler shape, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue that to the top at an angle of each side of the crate. So you want to give it the look of the antlers, so we don't want them to go straight up and down. We want them to be kind of to the side. Once I get both of those glued on, I'm going to add the eyes, and I'm using some buttons, and to give this project a little bit of dimension, I glue on a bottom set of buttons, and then I take some smaller black buttons and I glue those into the middle of the brown buttons. It gives it a more like whimsical eye look, and I really thought that turned out cute. So once I get those glued on, I took some of this red and white buffalo check ribbon, also from the Dollar Tree in the Christmas section. This is my favorite ribbon because you can also use it for Valentine's and for 4th of July. So I always pick up a whole bunch of those. Then I took some of this vase filler. I'm going to glue it into the middle of the bow. And then here is the final look of this project.
As quirky as mine, we're holding hands to keep each other warm while we stand and watch a choir performing all the Christmas songs that we love. Yeah, all the Christmas songs that we love. And in a while we're gonna go inside and drink our chocolate by the fire. 'Cause all I want.
For this project, we're going to be making a snowman wreath, and to make this wreath, I picked up one of the Tinsel snowmen that they have at the Dollar Tree. These are plastic wreath forms, and they have these notches that go around the outside of the plastic part. The tinsel is wrapped around each one of the notches, and so it's super easy to unravel this. We're just going to take all the tinsel off all 3 pieces of the snowman, and we'll be left with a plastic wreath form. So I'm using this silver deco mesh that I got at the Dollar Tree. I wanted this to be a full Dollar Tree project, so I did not go out and buy any deco mesh. This was in my stash, but they do put out the silver ones at Christmas time. If you wanted to use black, you could definitely use black for the hat as well. So I'm using my cutting mat, and I'm measuring this deco mesh to be about 6 inches long. I'm going to cut this full roll of deco mesh, and then I'm going to cut another 7 white deco mesh rolls this same exact way. So once I get all my deco mesh cut, I'm going to be rolling them like a burrito style, and I take 3 of the pieces and I roll them, and then I make them into a bundle. I'm going to use a pipe cleaner to attach them together. Now, when I use a metal wreath form, it really doesn't matter what color of pipe cleaner I use because you can't see it once you get all the deco mesh in there. I did feel like this one you could see a few pieces of my pipe cleaner, so definitely pick up a package of the white pipe cleaners to do the white part and a package of silver pipe cleaners to do the hat if you're doing it silver, or black if you're doing it black. But we're just going to be wrapping these bundles around the outside of this plastic frame. So there is a circular piece that goes on the inside, and then like a scalloped looking piece that goes on the outside. I wrapped it around one on one side and one on the other, and then I just secured it into the back. I am going to wrap the deco mesh bundles all around the outside. So this bottom circle took about 2 rolls of the deco mesh, and then it takes a little bit less as you go up the snowman's body. Altogether, I used 7 rolls of the deco mesh. I had a few pieces left over that I went ahead and went back into the middle of some of them and added them there. So if you want more in the middle of these wreath forms, then you would need to use 8 packages. Once I get it on there, I fluff it out, and then I just go ahead and do that same method for all 3 of the circles. So once I get all the white pieces on, I'm ready to do the hat, and I'm just basically doing the same thing. There is a little bit less of the plastic wreath form up there, so I just go down in a straight line for the hat against the white part, and I'm just wrapping it around there, and then I go around the entire outside to make the hat. So for his scarf, I'm just using some ribbon I had in my stash. I am pretty sure this came from the Dollar Tree. If it didn't come from the Dollar Tree, it came from Dollar General. So I just tie it around like a scarf, and then I make a bow just by folding it over and cinching it together. And I tie that off with a pipe cleaner, and then I'm attaching that pipe cleaner into the plastic wreath form. So I did use a full-sized pipe cleaner for this part, just because I wasn't sure how much of the deco mesh I would need to go through, but I go ahead and I secure that into the scarf to make it look like it is part of the scarf, and then I'm going to tie that in the back. And then I'm going to take some more of these giant bells that I had, and I glue one to the middle of the ribbon, and then I fluff it out. I do go ahead and dovetail the ends as well. And then I'm going to add 3 more of the giant bells to the body to look like the buttons. You could add a face here if you wanted to. I chose not to. I liked the look of it just the way it was, but a face would also be just as adorable. And then here is a look at the final project.
Good time. Doesn't matter if the snow is falling or the windows and the rain is pouring. It will always be Christmas in my heart. But this year I wanna hang out with
friends. Are you enjoying today's video? I hope so. If you haven't hit that like button yet, consider hitting it now. It helps my channel grow and it helps my video be seen by other people. This first project, we're going to be using one of the Dollar Tree Christmas trees. I did only use one for this project, but if you've ever used these Christmas trees, you know that they can be pretty sparse, and in fact, one of my little limbs actually broke off. So if you want to zip tie a couple of trees together to give yourself a fuller gnome, you could totally do that. I go ahead and fluff out all the branches and bend them so that they're facing downward, and then I'm going to take this sock that I also picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I'm sorry that this part of my video is so fast. It actually got filmed in the speed up version. So I'm going to take some of this batting and I'm going to stuff it up into the sock just to give it a little bit more fuller look. I did go ahead and put the heel of my sock to the back of my tree, that way it's not noticeable when the gnome is standing up. So once I get the hat to my desired look, I go ahead and glue that branch back on in the front of my tree to give it a little bit fuller look, and then I'm going to take one of these bulbs that also came from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to glue it there in the front. And then I took some holly and berries that I also got at the Dollar Tree just to give his hat a little bit of like funness. And then here is the final look of this gnome. I think he's adorable. You guys let me know down in the comments if you think he has kind of a little bit of Charlie Brown feel to him. So I thought I'd show you guys an alternate to the smaller gnome Christmas tree. This is a tomato cage, and I happen to have this on hand with the garland already wrapped around it. I had used it for another project, but you're going to want to pick up like 2 or 3 of the wired garlands from Walmart and a tomato cage. And I'm going to use a zip tie. I use 3 of them up at the top just to hold like the stake part of my tomato cage in place. Once I get those all zip tied on there, I took this Dollar Tree hat and I just sort of pushed down my greenery and I secured it really tight onto the top. Then I took a red bulb that also came from the Dollar Tree and I go ahead and stick it in there for his nose. You can glue it in as well, and then he is complete. I am telling you guys, these are so cute. They sit on my patio, my porch actually, and they are so fun. I have kind of a Santa, you can see back there, decor going on in my porch, and they just make the funnest decor. We're going to use one of the tinsel signs they have at the Dollar Tree. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a makeover. We're not going to change anything about its shape, but we're going to go ahead and remove this beard. We're going to save this for later to use in a later project in this video. So I'm taking one of these like mop duster things that you can get over in the automotive department, and I'm just kind of gluing it to the shape of the bottom part where his beard was. So I don't cut mine. I just go ahead and glue it around the sides. If you wanted to have more of the rounded shape, I suggest cutting like just a slit so that you can kind of fold it around this bottom part. Mine ends up looking a little bit more square-like, but it's totally up to you. I think he turns out adorable. So once I get his beard glued on, I'm not going to take the tinsel off today because we're just going to be hiding it, but I picked up this hat at the Dollar Tree. I picked up like 6 or 7 of them because I thought the pattern was just adorable, and I love the gray muffler part on the bottom. So we're going to cinch it really well in the back, and then we're going to use some hot glue just kind of to attach to our plastic frame. So I'm going to glue down the one side of the plastic frame, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick up the other side and put a little bit of glue, and then I'm going to glue down the part that I folded there in the middle. So you want to make sure that you have your fabric looking rather nice, even though probably no one is going to see the back of it. But if you want to give this as a gift, you want to make sure that where you cinched it turns out pretty well. So after I get those all hot glued, I go ahead and take the nose that the sign already came with, glue it back down, and then I'm going to glue just a little bit around the sides to give it a snugger fit around the nose. And then I just took some extra greenery. This came from the Dollar Tree as well. I tucked it into the muffler part of the hat, and then I'm going to take the little berries, glue them down as well. I think the berries and the greenery just add like an extra fun element, and I think this little guy would be something that you could find at like Ross or TJ Maxx. I think that he just turned out absolutely adorable, but I decided to go ahead and give him a hanger in the back just in case I wanted to hang him on the wall. So I'm just using a pop tab. That is kind of my secret tip I learned from my sister-in-law. It's easy to hang with those, and then here is the final look of our project. I think he's adorable. You guys let me know down in the comments below if this is something that you would like to recreate.
Everyone is here to celebrate one day. We have our ups and downs, but when there's love, there's always a way. And oh, this time of year, we come together to celebrate.
So for this project, we're going to be using this Santa box that came from the Dollar Tree and this beard that came from the Tinsel garland sign that we used in the previous project. So I'm going to go ahead and just hot glue the beard to the front of this box. When I started gluing the beard on, I realized I could have just glued the beard all the way to the top because the sock is going to cover it anyway. Quite a bit of the beard gets cut off. But you know, I guess you could use it for something else as well if you cut it correctly. So you're just going to glue it to the front of the box, and then you're going to glue around to give it the shape of the beard, like as a rounded shape of a face. I went ahead, glued in the sides, then I went ahead and trimmed it, and then went back and glued some more of the sides down. So it's kind of up to you how you decide to attach your fur. You could also use any other kind of fur as well. I think that a mop head would work really good here, or that cream colored nautical rope would work well here as well. So it's kind of up to you. There's a lot of options to use for beards as far as gnomes go. So I'm using the other mate to the sock I used in the previous project, and I'm filling this up with some batting, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach it to the Santa. So I go ahead and pull the sock down in the front only about part way, and then I go ahead and pull the sock down all the way in the back. I did not paint my box, so I didn't feel like it was necessary because none of my box is actually showing. If you don't like that, or if you don't like that it's kind of the neutral color on the sides, you could always paint it the same color as your sock. So once I get my sock on there, oh, I did put the heel of my sock to the back of the box as well. So once you get your sock on, you're going to attach an ornament. I'm using the mini ornaments from the Dollar Tree to the front underneath his hat for his nose, and then this project is complete. I think he turned out absolutely adorable. You guys let me know what you think about him down in the comments below.
I thought about how things can come around just like that if everyone is here to celebrate one day. We have our ups and downs, but when there's love, there's always a way. And oh, this time of year.
So today we're going to be making a winter wreath, and all the supplies for today's wreath came from the Dollar Tree. We're going to start out with this foam wreath form. I've been having a hard time saying that. And we're just going to take the yarn and we're going to wrap it around very tightly around the form. And I'm placing hot glue every once in a while, all in the same place that I'm going to have on the back of the wreath. That way the glue is going to show through because this thread is, or this yarn is really thin, and so I want the glue to be showing towards the back, not to the front of our project. Here you can see I have it tightly wound and just a little bit on the wreath, and I'm going to continue to follow this step around the entire wreath form, just putting glue, I'm going to show you here in a second, onto the wreath form and then pulling it really tightly next to the next thread, and I'm just going to continue to do that through the entire wreath. So I just want to show you here how tightly wound I have it, and I have it really close together, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that through the whole wreath form. I have the whole foam piece covered with my yarn, and you can see on the back where I put the glue, so it's all roughly in the same place there. I'm going to set that aside and take the rest of the yarn that I had left over from wrapping it on the wreath, and I'm going to start making my pom-poms. So I'm going to put a piece on the inside of my hand, and then I'm going to wrap it. I chose to wrap it about 50 times around my hand, and then I'm going to slide it off my hand here in a second. Once I slide it off of my hand, I want to keep it scrunched together in kind of a ball form. And then I'm going to take an extra piece of string that I cut off of the yarn spool, and I'm going to tie that around the middle of the little bundle of yarn. This was my first time making pom-poms, and the first couple I was like really nervous about getting it like on there right, but when you're tying the string around the group of yarn, you want to make sure it's really tight because we're going to start cutting here in a second. And I had a couple that weren't super tight, and a couple of my yarn strings ended up falling off of it. So you want to make sure that that knot that you tie in the middle there is super tight. So once you have the knot, you're going to cut around both sides of where you tied. So there should be like a little space for your scissors to fit through. You're just going to put them through there and cut. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Once you have it all kind of cut up and it's getting the resemblance of a shape of a pom-pom, then we're going to give it a little bit of a haircut. So what I did was I just sort of grabbed it in my hand and kind of pushed forward like you can see me doing, and then I just trim it off. That way they are uniform size, and then I do it on the other side, and then as I kind of keep making these pom-poms, I do it about 4 times, like so, on the ends and then in the middle, and it gives you a really nice good sized pom-pom. So I end up making about 8 of this brown color, and then I also have some cream colored yarn, and I go ahead and make 8 of the cream colored yarn pom-poms as well. As you see me gluing them onto the wreath here in a few minutes, I am short 1 pom-pom, so I end up getting 1 more skein of yarn and making 1 extra cream colored pom-pom. So altogether there are 8 brown pom-poms and 9 cream colored pom-poms. Both of these yarns came from the Dollar Tree. This brown yarn was a lot thinner than the cream colored yarn for some reason. So the cream colored pom-poms end up being super fluffy, where these are kind of not quite so fluffy. So all I'm going to do once I have the pom-poms done is I kind of spread it out on the back and I apply some hot glue, and I'm just going to glue that right down to the wreath form. So now I'm assembling all of the pom-poms I made, and I'm just going in with 1 brown and 1 cream color, and I do that all the way around the wreath. So you can see my spot for the missing pom-pom. I just go ahead and make another cream one real quick and then glue it there in the middle, and then I'm just kind of fluffing out my pom-poms. They're so soft. I really liked the cream colored yarn. It was very, very soft and puffy. So now we're ready to attach the middle of our wreath, and I just picked up these Christmas tree ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cut off the top parts and then we're going to glue them to the center of our wreath. So I do go ahead and glue these kind of staggered, so one is taller than the other, and then I do go ahead and glue like the corners of them together so that they're more stable in the center of the wreath. So the last step is just to take some of this twine and tie it into a shoelace bow, and I'm going to glue it to the top of the tree where the hole was for the Christmas tree hanger, and I'm just going to apply it over that so that you can't see the hole, and it adds kind of a nice touch to the tree and draws back in the brown colors from the pom-poms. So to make the hanger for the wreath, I just take a piece of the cream colored yarn, and I just turn over the wreath and I glue that yarn piece to the back, just in a little loop, so I have some way to hang it on the wall. So here's the final look of the wreath, and I really love how it turned out. I had a lot of fun making these pom-poms, and I think I would like to do some more pom-pom projects in the future. Let me know what you think about the wreath down in the comments below. So to make my cone trees, I like to use these party hats from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to go ahead and remove all the tinsel and the little party tinsel thing that's at the top as well. And then I'm using some burlap that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to secure it up at the top, and then I'm going to wrap it around the tree. The reason I like to use these cones or these party hats as the cone trees is because of the wide base on the bottom, and it can function as either a tabletop tree or you can use it as a tree topper, which is what I did last year with the video that I made, and I'll put that up in the cards and down in the description box. So we're going to be using these burlap flowers. They are also linked down below, and I'm just using some hot glue and I'm going to randomly place them around the cone tree. So I just sort of space them out to not be right on top of each other, and I go ahead and glue one at the top as well to make it a like at the top of the tree. And then to give it a little bit more shabby chicness, I took these pearls that came from the Dollar Tree. These are like the medium-sized pearls, and I'm going to glue them into the center of these burlap flowers. Remember to glue the little holes on the sides of the pearls to the side so that when somebody is looking at your tree, they won't see the holes. And then here is the look of the final project. So I'm going to use some lace that I had in my stash, and this is about a 3-inch lace. So I'm going to go ahead and measure from the bottom, and then I'm going to glue up towards the top of where the like binding of the lace is. I go ahead and cut that piece off once it is wound around the tree, and then I'm going to take another piece of the lace and I'm going to lay that over it about halfway down. So we're covering about 1.5 inches of that ribbon, and we're going to do that around the entire tree. So for the topper of this tree, we're going to be using a jewel from totallydazzle.com. If you want to check out, they have a silver collection that we're using right here, and then they also have a rose gold collection, which we're going to use in the next tree, which is my absolute favorite. But there's a link down in the description box if you want to check it out and get some for yourself. So this is a brooch, and I did go ahead and just clip it to the top of the tree, and then here is the look of the final project. For this cone tree, we're going to be using this lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and it is a kind of thin ribbon, so this project is a little bit time consuming, but we're just going to wrap it around the cone. Once I get it all the way around the cone, I do go ahead and cut it. That way I have individual pieces as I go up the cone, and I don't have a weird transition piece when I get to the next row. So once I wrap that all around the cone tree, and my second layer is going to overlap the first layer and so on as I go up the entire tree. So once I get the lace on, then I'm going to take these same pearls that I used earlier from the Dollar Tree, and you want to make sure when you glue them on that you glue the holes to the side, because you don't want someone to see the hole when they're looking straight on to your cone tree. So I just space them out, and I don't measure, I just kind of eyeball it, but I kind of make sure they're spaced in between each other. Then I'm going to take this jewel, or there's several jewels actually, from totallydazzle.com. These are from the rose gold collection, and these happen to be little bows that I got from Natalie. So if you've never checked out the company, I highly recommend it. Go down and check it out. It's in the description box. There's all kinds of things that you can make with these, and some of them are brooches and some of them are not. So in the last tree it did have a pin, and then in this one, this is just a one without a pin. So here are the little bows that we're going to be using. I have 2 of each one, and I'm just going to kind of glue them in between the pearls on this tree. And I just space them out to make sure that there are not 2 of the same ones by each other. And then here is the final look of this project. So I'm going to start off by cutting my deco mesh, and I do end up using about 7 rolls of deco mesh for this wreath. I'm cutting each piece at 6 inches, and I use 4 white rolls and 3 red rolls that came from the Dollar Tree. Once I have all the pieces cut, I'm going to roll them into bundles, and then I'm going to secure the bundles together with a pipe cleaner. So I use 3 separate bundles, and then I use a half of a pipe cleaner. So if you have hand problems or it's just easier for you to use a full pipe cleaner, you can definitely do that and then trim them off when you are totally finished with the wreath in the back. So how I secure mine is I take the pipe cleaner, I wrap it around, and then I pull the deco mesh really tightly against the pipe cleaner, and then I twist. This gives it a super firm hold with the pipe cleaner, and I'm able to kind of bend it to how I want it to look. So I'm going to be attaching this first roll of deco mesh to the top of my hat wreath, and this wreath form did come from the Dollar Tree. So I'm just wrapping my deco mesh around the outside of the wire wreath form, and I just go all the way around the triangle shape. Once I get my deco mesh on, then I'm going to take some ribbon and I'm going to be wrapping my ribbon around the center of the witch hat. So I'm using some wired burlap ribbon. I believe this came from Dollar General. And I'm going to just glue periodically as I go around the wreath. Now, I had some struggles here with my ribbon, and I don't 100% love how this middle piece turned out. I think that if I were to recreate this again, I would wrap it and then go back up the wreath. So I tried to just go down with my ribbon, and there is some gaps when I get kind of down to the bottom, and I have to use some hot glue to fill those in. So just kind of a thought, if you're going to make this, I would go down at my angle and then come back up at the other angle. So once I get this whole part covered, and I'm going down all the way to just barely the top of the brim, and I'm going to be using some more bundles of deco mesh. So this time I'm going to intertwine them here. So I'm going to have 2 rolls of red and 1 roll of white, and then I'm going to have 2 rolls of white and 1 roll of red. And this is where I use the rest of my deco mesh. So it is about 3 packages of white deco mesh and 2 packages of red deco mesh. So I'm going to go ahead and roll all of my bundles together. I always roll all the bundles ahead of time before I attach them to the wreath. I find that it just goes quicker. I have seen where people store their bundles together in like baskets and things like that. I just have them separated on a table, but it definitely, however you can get it to be, more organized, is going to be that much faster for you. So I am attaching these bundles, and I go back and forth, 2 red and 1 white bundle, and then another 2 white and 1 red bundle. And I am going to go down along that wire piece along the ribbon, and then I'm going to go all the way around the wire frame, so all the way down on the bottom as well. It is pretty full once you get across that top piece. If you don't want to do the bottom, as long as you fluff out your deco mesh good enough, it should cover the wire form. I thought that it looked better going around the whole outside edge. So now I'm ready to make a bow to go on my wreath, and I'm measuring my ribbon out at 6 inches, and then my other ribbon was measured out at 10 inches, and I'm just folding it over on top of each other to have 4 loops on both sides. Then I'm going to take my ribbon, fold it in half, and then I'm going to take a pair of scissors, and I'm going to very thinly cut a little strip there. So I had a lot of ribbon right here, and I only wanted a really small cut. So it did take me a little bit to get through the ribbon, but like I said, just a very small cut here. And then you're going to take a pipe cleaner, and you're going to wrap that pipe cleaner around the middle so that the ribbon has something to hold on to. If you didn't have a pipe cleaner or didn't want to use a pipe cleaner here, you could definitely use wire, floral wire. Another like twine would work here good. Just something to tie it in the middle with and give it something to like really hold on to when you fluff out your bow. So now I'm just going to open up my bow and fluff it, and this is the part that is probably the most time consuming. Once I get all the pieces fluffed out on the ends, I do go ahead and dovetail those so that it gives it a more high-end look. And then I'm going to use that same pipe cleaner that I used in the middle to tie it off, and I'm just going to use that to tie it into my wreath. So I decided to go ahead and tie the bow into the corner on the right hand side. I did play around with this a little bit. I tried it out at the top and then I tried it out at the bottom, and I just thought that it looked better on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and attach that there at the very bottom. And then I decided to go ahead and glue a giant jingle bell from the Dollar Tree into the middle of my bow and to the top of my wreath, just so I have a more Santa look. And then once I have that all in there and glued on, then here is the final look of this project.
Let's go outside, the snow is falling down and every child is having so much fun. The snowman is twice the size as me, with a smile as quirky as mine. We're holding hands to keep each other warm while we stand.
Remember, wherever you are in your journey is a perfect place to start, and I will see you in my next video. Now go get crafting. See you next time.